I actually have a few different things I'm going to be talking about today. To actually quote Andrew Clay Schaefer quoting someone else. Someone once said, when you give a talk, make one point, make it well. Apparently he does not subscribe to that school of thought, and neither do I. So to introduce myself, I know there's a lot of familiar faces in this crowd, but my name is Brian McClain. I lead up the infrastructure and engineering team at Warner Music Group. You can find me on Twitter for random technology-related stuff and awful jokes at Brian M. McClain. And for those not familiar with Warner Music Group, or have at least heard the name but not really familiar with what we do, I shamelessly pulled this from our About page on our website, but in short, we not only serve the consumer side of the music industry, the delivery of physical and digital music, but as well as the artist side as well. So everything from finding and signing talent to helping them get their music out there and licensed and copyrighted. A couple honorary mentions. Jonathan Murray, our CTO, he gave an excellent talk, I thought, last year at a platform. And we have Michael Michaelides over here, who's our VP of engineering. We actually also have Alan, who's on our infrastructure team as well. So Warner's in full force here. So to give myself a little bit of street cred, and just to let you guys know why I'm up here talking, I've been involved with Cloud Foundry since 2011. I actually looked this up. It was VMworld 2011, where Dave McCrory and Derek Collison sat on stage and gave the demo of pushing an application to Cloud Foundry. I've been involved with Bosch since 2012, the one-year anniversary of Cloud Foundry. And I've been at WMG for 2 years now, just shy of 2 years. And since the inception of our organization, we're here because, like I expect a lot of people here, I'm from a globally distributed enterprise. We're not serving our customers strictly out of one city or one state or even one time zone, but all over the world. And I think probably the biggest piece of street cred we get is 100% of our development is on top of Cloud Foundry. We don't put out an app or a service that's not running out on Cloud Foundry today. And we've been really, really, really busy. And we finally want to get out and start sharing with what we've been doing. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was some of the work that we had done with the UAA. If you're not very familiar with the UAA or what it does for Cloud Foundry, I believe the acronym, and it's actually escaping me right now, it's user authentication and authorization, I believe. But everything regarding users and their roles within Cloud Foundry, but it also provides a OAuth interface for applications running on top of Cloud Foundry. So we actually run 2 UAAs in our architecture. The standard vanilla UAA that comes out of the box, and that serves up everything on the Cloud Foundry side, all our orgs and spaces. And we actually run a second UAA as a Cloud Foundry application, and this is where we had done all of our modifications. This does our OAuth authentication, this does our user authorization, and we'll dig into some of these specifics. So the first thing that we had done, and I believe at this point this is actually an option out of the box, or maybe not out of the box, but with little work. But when we started doing this about 2 years ago, we integrated UAA with Active Directory. Coming from a traditional Microsoft-based enterprise, everyone logged in through every application that was integrated with Active Directory, and they still expected this to be the case. They didn't want another username and password to remember. And if we were going to come and and upset our own industry and our own employees with rewriting our entire stack of running our business, we wanted to make it a very pleasant situation for them. The other thing that we had done was we actually removed the integration with Postgres, and we went with Cassandra. The biggest reason for this was we were simply already on Cassandra. Our backend services write and read data from Cassandra. We were already running it, tuning it. We had spent a lot of time learning it. And it seemed like a no-brainer for us. We have our kind of core Cassandra cluster that serves our kind of basic needs of authentication and authorization. That's globally distributed along with our other Cassandra data centers. And it allows us to be running multiple instances of UAA without kind of running into some of the issues of, well, if you start your authentication request on one UAA and for some reason that next request goes to the next, it doesn't really like that. So this was a big one for us. We also decomposed it a little bit. And this was a kind of a selfish process for us, simply because we wanted this to look like a lot of the applications that we have in our stack at the time. Like a lot of people are doing, I'm assuming, we have our separation between front end and back end. Back end being more the data layer, and front end simply serving up the front end. And we wanted UAA to do the same. So they're more or less essentially the same. However, the front end is simply just passing along requests to the back end. But this allows us to, as we did with our other services, keep that network separation between our public-facing applications and our internal data-facing services. So the next point I want to talk to, and this is probably where I'll spend a lot more of my talk, simply because this is where I was more involved, was in our multi-data center architecture. So I'm actually really excited to show this slide because this is the first time we've shown this to anyone besides ourselves. I'm not going to dig through every single layer of this. I'm sure people are familiar with how some of these technologies work, how Rabbit and how Elasticsearch and other technologies like that work. We'll hit on a couple, but one thing I want to point out is what I've highlighted in blue are actually individual Cloud Foundry deployments, not pieces of a cluster for Cloud Foundry, but full Cloud Foundries per each one of those individual boxes. And there was a lot of reasons for this. A lot of reasons that I could probably give an entire talk on just that for. And this was kind of one of the initial things that, made me really look at Warner Music as a company that was exciting to work for. So this kind of demonstrates how we've decomposed the front end and the back end. And all of our data services are, not surprisingly, running on that service layer. But we actually run multiple front-end Cloud Foundries as well because we want to expose different applications to different customers, some of them public-facing, some of them only internal to one subdivision of Warner Music. And doing this really simplifies that process. We don't have a lot of logic in the load balancer on top of this, but rather we just simply say, only allow traffic to this cluster, if it's coming from an internal IP. One thing I will be hitting on is a data persistence layer as well. As I mentioned, we've made a big bet on Cassandra for this. We're looking at a couple other technologies to help fill this out for some of the things that maybe Cassandra isn't the best choice for. But I guess we can actually just dive right into that. So the reason for this architecture is obviously downtime's bad, and we want to avoid it just like everyone else does. The nice thing about this, though, is how this has been architected. And for those who did come from James Bayer's talk, he mentioned Cloud Credo and their blog post on how they architected their infrastructure for comic relief. And when I first read that post, I kind of had to laugh to myself because we were building this out at the same time they were building it out. So I guess great minds think alike. But each of these data centers, in the case of a network partition, can run completely independent of each other. We have our data replicating to each of the Cassandra nodes in each data center. So we at least have one copy of that data in every single data center. And we've seen this where maybe the network goes down for one reason or another. And we can quickly kind of either automatically from the global load balancer or even within the data center say, well, okay, let's not try to dally around while we're trying to get this back up. Let's just send all our requests to the data center that's running correctly, and it will catch up when everything's back up and running. So for those who haven't used Cassandra a lot, it has multi-data center as a core concept. When you look at the partitioning schemes in Cassandra and some of the discovery schemes, a lot of them are specific to how the actual infrastructure is architected, whether that's rack-based, data center-based. There's even some AWS and EC2 specific partitioners and what they refer to as snitches, but kind of the discovery model for Cassandra. As I mentioned, we keep our reads local, but our writes global. Fully realizing that we're fighting the cap theorem at that point, we trade off the availability, we trade off the consistency for the availability. We're not, at least at this point, dealing with data that needs to be 100% up to date, nanosecond it's updated. But we've seen that Cassandra kind of serves this in a way that's good enough. One of the big lessons we've learned is you cannot really run, once you're getting into the terabytes or bigger size of data, one single Cassandra cluster with 30, 40, 50 applications all hitting it, and expect everything to be sunshine and roses. I'm actually dealing with the issue of this right now. So what we're moving to is many Cassandra clusters, not hundreds, but we're moving to a one Cassandra cluster per application stream. The application stream may have multiple services within it, but just kind of partitioning that load and that data we've seen is going to save you a lot of headache and save you a lot of sleep. So back to kind of why we're all here for this week. On the Cloud Foundry front, we've actually recently completed our migration from Cloud Foundry V1 to V2. V2 was extremely early in its development cycle when we started this 2 years ago. And while we were extremely excited for what was coming out of it, we needed to get to production. So we went to prod on V1. And that drove a lot of the architectural decisions that we made on that graph I showed you. James pointed out that while it's not on the immediate roadmap, multi-data center, multi-zone concepts in Cloud Foundry are still being thought about. There's bigger problems to tackle, as he mentioned. But this is why you can architect around that. The nice thing for those who maybe haven't done this yet and are on V1, it was not a painful process to do. There's already little to no coding specific to Cloud Foundry, depending on your framework. And if there is, it's generally limited to pulling in things and how you pull in services and ports to listen on. And for us, actually removed a bit of complexity, specifically around logging. We had a solution that was based on 0MQ, would deliver to Logstash, to Elasticsearch, and then we'd kind of look through that in Kibana using Logregator, and we can just forward straight to Logstash. And of course, because we're not absolutely insane, of course, we manage this by Bosch now. So diving a bit deeper into the services versus application layer, apps and services get separated on different Cloud Foundry clusters. And these are actual network separations. As I mentioned, from even just the security side alone, talking to our security guys, this let them sleep at night as well. And we run multiple app and multiple service layer cloud foundries. And as I mentioned, what this lets us do is spin these up based on different needs. Whether that's public versus private versus internal versus hosted by us but for our customers, or any other scenario you can think. Going with this concept from kind of day one, it gives us the flexibility that we needed without putting a lot of that logic at the load balancer and the routing layer. So the next thing I want to talk about to kind of go in a much different direction is something that we've been building out for quite some time now. And while delivering Cloud Foundry really did obviously help our developers become much more productive, and just seeing them be able to increase their velocity of how quickly they're turning out these services and applications, what we want to do is give them even a bit more power and give non-developers a bit more power as well. So this is where we developed Console, or Cloud Console. So where this really hits in is on newcomers to Cloud Foundry. So every time we were onboarding a new developer, obviously there's a bit of learning curve there. I don't think the Cloud Foundry CLI is the most complex thing you'll ever learn, specifically after learning Bosch, but not to dig at Bosch, but I don't think anyone's going to deny that. It was still just one, albeit small, barrier to getting developers up and running on Cloud Foundry. So we asked, well, to get these guys on, to get non-developers looking at some more business-faced metrics, was there a way we could kind of put a interface on top of this that didn't require them to, at the time that we started looking at this, install Ruby and VMC, but even now install a binary and learn the syntax and log in and, kind of go the route of figuring out, past just docs and training. So that's where we developed Cloud Console. And whoever's going to break the Wi-Fi, now's the time to do it, because I'm going to try a demo. So what we have running here is our actual Cloud Console environment. And I've actually seen this a couple times. Obviously, Pivotal provides their own run pivotal.io, which is focused on kind of providing Cloud Foundry as a paid service, at least in my opinion. And I've seen a couple people present similar concepts to this. And where we were really aiming with this is a tool that spanned not only developers, but non-developers as well. So while we have the power to do everything like manage orgs and spaces, manage applications, we've already seen the side effect, and this was kind of an unexpected one, where people who have never used Cloud Foundry before were diving in and using this as a reference. So to just kind of dive into this a little bit and show you guys what it's about, so I have my organization here with a whopping one application that went straight to prod because who tests code anymore, right? And you'll see a lot of familiar concepts with people who have done these consoles before. You can dig into the actual applications running here. Start, stop, you can manage services and environment variables. So what I've got running here is a very simple application. This is actually the application I use every time we spin up a new Cloud Foundry to just kind of test. This is Ruby, for example. We have a couple others in Java and Node and Go now. But all we're simply doing is dumping out environment variables. So what we'll do here is leave a little message for the next person who uses this. And I think there was a service. Oh, it's already bound. Okay. So, for those who do work in Cloud Foundry, we had to give it a quick restart. And obviously, we'll see that's right here. So obviously a super, super, super high level look at the console. But this is something we're hoping to continue to build out and make this kind of the initial place that developers can go within Warner Music and begin their development. Yeah.
I'm going to ask the gratuitous, is this open source? Can we get our hands on it?
That was the exact question I told him was going to be the very first question. Yep. So we're in talks to do that internally. Obviously, one of the first points I made was we're an enterprise that's changing how we do a lot of stuff. One of that is convincing them that open source is not the worst thing in the world.
Everyone kind of we've talked to is kind of writing their own one of these.
Exactly.
It'd be great for everyone just to contribute to one decent one, and it looks like you're the first.
Exactly. No, and so we're definitely pushing, myself, Michael, Jonathan, our CTO, we're all pushing the proper people to do so. Obviously, we got to appease those who need appeasing, but we're making a strong case, and I think coming out to CF Summit and telling them that it was the very first question, as I called, is going to be a good push in the right direction. So I actually went through this a little bit quick, since I know we started a little bit late and we have another talk after me. But I can dive into some questions if anyone has any. Yeah?
Yeah, the title of your talk appeared to originally.
So right now, so the question was our UAA integration only for Warner Music Group employees?
Other enterprises can bet on Cloud Foundry.
The goals of the foundation are to make the project the platform of choice for application delivery and change the world.
We really think Cloud Foundry belongs to the industry, and over time we think many companies, more than the 32 that have been announced to date, will get involved and help.
I will say our AD guys kind of got a little bit scared when we asked if that was a good idea or not. But we're also looking at maybe there's a better solution to doing that. Maybe multiple authentication providers.
Are you using any gateway authenticators like Ping or SiteMinder or anything like that?
Not currently. As I mentioned, the solution was kind of specific to the need at the time. But we even look at what's our solution around if we wanted to have Facebook authentication or Twitter authentication. My personal 2 cents is we simply find a way to do multiple authentication providers and not try to toss everything into AD.
Have you looked at, along those lines, you looked at OpenID Connect?
It was discussed, but as we were serving the WMG employees and we were getting a lot from UAA, it kind of seemed, at the time at least, not the best fit. Exactly. That may be a possible solution. Yep.
So in order to support Cassandra, did you create a Postgres to Cassandra adapter layer?
No way. No. So it was actually not that hard. And that's one of the points I wanted to make was, I know it's been kind of hammered on for the past couple days, but the fact that everything in Cloud Foundry is open source, we tossed at some guys that had really strong Java and Cassandra experience. And I don't know the exact number of days of turnaround, but I think that's kind of the point, is it's measured in days, not months. Yep.
One statement, one question. Statement, open source all of this, please. This is great.
We're in talks on the UAA front as well. I was actually talking to these guys right before the talk.
So the second question.
Yeah, so, again, the grain of salt is this was tested on CFV1, but that's why we went with fully independent Cloud Foundries. These aren't talking across data centers. And for the exact same reasons, is we tried it, didn't really work.
The CFDB is backed off it.
So it's actually using the UAA that ships with, on the Cloud Foundry front, is using the UAA that ships with CF. where all our Cassandra and AD integration is actually the second UAA that we run. So we're, yep, exactly. So, and the other thing, our kind of, I wouldn't even call it a 10% project, but as we get time is we have been working on tooling around kind of managing multi-data center application deployments. The way I like to describe it was the application answer to Wash.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Anything else? Nope. Okay, well, thank you everyone.